And we both know we couldn't make any of the movies that we make. And I guess that's what makes our friendship last so long.
And it was nice to be working with a partner because we were always being able to bounce stuff off of each other. Filmmaking is collaborative. It's always going to be collaborative.
You know, I mean, growing up in the south side of Chicago, I watched a lot of television. And I started fooling around with making movies with, you know, my friends and my relatives and everyone. And I thought I was going to be an electronics engineer for some reason. And then very quickly I realized that if you wanted to be involved in movies, if you were a director, then you could do everything.
And I hated engineering. I loved creative writing. When I was in elementary school, I remember there was a kid in my dorm who said, you know, Gale, they got film schools in California.
I was in, you know, my parents' living room. I was watching the Johnny Carson show as I did every night, you know, and had Jerry Lewis on as a guest. And Jerry Lewis said, "Yeah, I'm a visiting professor at the USC School of Cinema." And I said, "School of Cinema?"
The idea of film school was new, but both of them were driven to make movies, and they found themselves on the same path.
So the day that I said I'm going to USC Film School, my father looked at me and said, "You're going to go join the circus?"
So I tell my parents this is what I want to do. Even though my parents thought I'm going to join the circus, they would have had the same exact reaction.
And of course, my mother's attitude was, you know, let him get it out of his system.
Let him get it out of his system.
I met Bob Zemeckis at USC Film School. There are all these graduate students talking about the auteur theory and Godard and all this stuff, and we were talking about James Bond and Clint Eastwood movies. Because he was the only person I'd ever met who had the original soundtrack album from The Great Escape, like I do. So we discovered right away that we had a certain affinity towards each other.
You know, we each had it memorized.
From there, the foundation of a lasting partnership was built. Together, they had the skills to create stories that would capture audiences around the world.
I was digging around in my parents' basement. I found my father's high school yearbook. I discovered that my father was the president of his graduating class. And I tell this to Bob, and he immediately jumps up and says,
If we were in high school, would we be friends with our fathers? Would we be hanging out? Would we be pals?
There's a good time travel story, because the George Pal H.G. Wells' A Time Machine, when we were kids, made a huge impression on us.
Inspired by this idea, they set out to create something unforgettable, something that would defy time itself.
Within days, we had a deal to write 2 drafts of Back to the Future.
There was nothing really fun about writing the screenplay. It was really hard.
So we had a big bulletin board in our office. We used the index card method of plotting and kept getting rejected.
I have a stack of rejection letters from everybody, every studio in town.
It was rejected over 40 times.
Except one guy, and that was Steven.
Their persistence finally paid off, and they found an ally in Steven Spielberg.
Was now in production on
Back to the Future.
Given an ultimatum by the studio that if the movie couldn't be delivered by a certain release date, they didn't want to make it.
The studio's demands kept escalating, forcing them into risky decisions that would test the entire production.
My first choice for the part of Marty McFly was Michael J., but I couldn't get him out of his TV show.
So we shoot with Eric Stoltz.
And I assembled all the footage, and I looked at it that I had shot after shooting like 3 or 4 weeks, and I realized that I had made a tremendous error in judgment, and
We fired him. The studio said, hey, you guys can make the movie but cut $1 million out. Bob and I looked long and hard at the script and said...
And then it's starting to get to the point where we have to strike the big set in the town square. I completely blame myself. And it was my ego all the way.
When the lights came up, their gamble had paid off. The audience's reaction was electric, sealing Back to the Future's fate.
The movie was a gigantic hit.
And we went to the preview of it and it brought the house down.
Action. Well, here I am, George McFly, and I'm proud to be George McFly.
Universal came to us and said, guys, let's talk sequel. And we contacted Crispin's.
He contacted me back.
And Crispin said Michael J. Fox's deal, which was $2 million, and he wants script approval.
It's total fabrication. He said that I had asked for the same amount of money that Michael J. Fox was getting in the film. So it's the same kind of creative thought process, but it goes right into propaganda.
Well, come on, I'm not even going to dignify that with a response. That's crazy.
So I had a relatively realistic viewpoint of how the business worked. I did not do anything illegal. Bob Gale did something illegal. Right. Propaganda is essentially fooling people into believing that there's something good for them.
And Crispin said, no, sorry, I want you to tell 2 words. Richard Castellano.
From all these years later, they had taken the molds of my face from the old age makeup from the original film and put another actor into prosthetics that were made from my face, and then interspliced a very small amount of footage of me from the original film in order to fool audiences into believing that I was in the movie. One would really understand really how messed up what they did is. There's a solution to it, and it ends up being a political solution. And so for me, it wasn't I had the lawsuit.
He sued, we offered him the final offer that we made, have Crispin be dead in the future. There's no, George McFly could be dead.
The lawsuit left its mark, pushing Gale to the fringes of Hollywood. But while doors closed, his partnership with Zemeckis remained unbreakable, grounded in a vision they refused to let go.
And leave it at that, and we'll let bygones be bygones.
It was pretty clear that we should not count on Crispin being in the movie.
Still in touch with Bob Zemeckis? Absolutely. I talk to him all the time. I see him regularly. We email each other all the time.
And we just said, hey, let's storm Hollywood together. It all got started, actually, when Leslie says to Bob, have you ever thought about doing a stage musical out of Back to the Future? Bob was kind of
Walking out of Mel Brooks' producers, and she said, Back to the Future would make a magnificent musical.
Fueled by a shared passion and years of experience, a way to revisit their work through a new lens.
We didn't have any limitations. We didn't know what we couldn't do.
Experience of bringing Back to the Future onto the musical stage has probably been the greatest creative experience of my life.
I would like to do the Back to the Future, the musical. I floated that out to the folks at Universal. They don't get it.
With the lights up and an eager audience, Gale and Zemeckis step into the theater together, their journey finally coming full circle.
An artist should be an anarchist.
It's pretty darn great.
The vulgar way that I put that is, you got to put your dick on the windowsill.
Stephen doesn't have the healthy cynicism that we have.
I thought that was a good description of what it might have been like.